The night my son screamed that I ruined his life, I thought I had lost him forever. But then, a secret from my past changed everything. The clatter of forks and spoons echoed too loudly in the Anderson household that evening. Maria had always prided herself on family dinners, a sacred tradition she never allowed to fade, even when life got busy. No matter what happened during the day, she insisted everyone sit together at the table, talk, and share at least one meal. But tonight, the warmth that usually filled the room had been replaced by something sharp and cold. Daniel, her eldest son, sat rigid in his chair, his arms crossed tight against his chest. His plate was untouched, the steam rising from his food curling into the silence. His younger brother, Alex, chewed nervously, his eyes darting between his brother and his parents. Robert, Maria's husband, tried to pretend nothing was wrong, his gaze locked on the roast chicken as though it were the most fascinating thing in the world. But Maria felt it, the storm brewing in Daniel's eyes, the tension twisting in her stomach. She placed her hand on the table and said softly, "Daniel, is something bothering you?" That was the moment the dam broke. "You never listen, Mom." Daniel's voice thundered across the table, startling Alex so much he dropped his fork. "You only care about how things look, about your stupid dinners, about me being the perfect son everyone admires." Maria's breath caught in her throat. "That's not true," she whispered, her eyes searching his face. "I just want what's best for you, what's best for me," Daniel shot back, his voice shaking with fury. "Or what's best for you? You've planned my whole life like it's your project. Do you even know what I want? What I dream about?" Maria blinked, stunned. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. She realized with horror that she didn't know the answer. Robert set down his fork with a sigh, rubbing his temples. "Son, calm down. Don't raise your voice at your mother." Daniel turned on him, his face red with anger. "And you, always silent, always letting her control everything. Do either of you actually care about me? Or just about pretending we're the perfect family?" The room went deathly quiet. Alex pushed back his chair, muttering, "I'm not hungry," before slipping away to his room. The sound of his door closing upstairs was like a gavel striking at the end of a trial. Daniel shoved his chair back so hard it scraped across the floor. His untouched dinner sat abandoned, steam now fading into the cold air. His voice dropped, lower but sharper than before. "I can't breathe in this house anymore." And then he was gone. The slam of the front door rattled the dishes on the table. Maria sat frozen, staring at the empty chair across from her. The chair that had always been filled. The chair that now looked like a hole in her heart. For the first time in years, dinner was unfinished. And for the first time in her life, Maria didn't know if her family tradition would survive the night. The house was quiet after Daniel left, but it was the kind of quiet that pressed heavily on Maria's chest. She sat at the table long after the plates had grown cold, staring at the empty chair. Every creak of the house seemed to echo louder than usual, every tick of the clock another reminder that her son had walked out the door angry and broken. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Maria tossed and turned, the words replaying in her mind. "You never listen, Mom. Do you even know what I want?" Each repetition pierced her deeper, like a thorn pressing further into her heart. When the first rays of dawn slipped through the curtains, Maria gave up on sleep altogether. She padded softly into the living room and opened the old photo album she hadn't touched in years. Dust puffed into the air as she turned the cover. There he was, a photograph of Daniel at 5 years old, grinning from ear to ear with a missing front tooth, holding up a messy finger painting that barely resembled a house. His cheeks were flushed, his eyes sparkling with joy as he had shouted, "Look, Mommy, I made our home." Maria's lips trembled as she ran her fingers over the picture. Back then, she remembered, she had been working double shifts at the diner. Money was tight, and she was exhausted most days, but she always found time to celebrate Daniel's little victories. Every painting, every Lego tower, every soccer game goal. She cheered like it was the most important thing in the world. Another page revealed a memory of his first day of school. Daniel, wearing a backpack almost bigger than him, clung to her hand nervously. She remembered kneeling down, looking into his wide brown eyes and promising, "Don't worry, sweetheart." I'll always be here for you. Her throat tightened. Always be here for you. Was she really living up to that promise? As she flipped through the years, birthdays with candles glowing, Christmas mornings with Daniel tearing open gifts, school concerts where he stood proudly on stage, Maria felt the warmth of those days collide with the bitterness of yesterday's fight. Somewhere along the way, things had changed. When had his laughter turned into silence? When had the sparkle in his eyes been replaced with a glare of resentment? She thought of the high school years, when she had started planning his future. She pushed him to get good grades, to join the right clubs, to prepare for college. She told herself she was helping him secure a better life, one she never had. But in doing so, had she silenced his voice? Maria shut the album, pressing it tightly to her chest as tears slid down her cheeks. The boy in those pictures wasn't gone. He was still out there, somewhere beneath the anger and rebellion. But she feared she might have buried him under the weight of her own expectations. And now, the only proof of the boy she once knew sat in faded photographs and an empty chair at dinner. The following evening, Maria sat on the porch with a cup of tea that had already gone cold. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving streaks of orange and pink across the sky. It was beautiful, but she couldn't enjoy it. Her thoughts were heavy, circling the same questions. Where did I go wrong? When did Daniel start slipping away from me? Her gaze drifted to the rocking chair across from her, empty now, but once filled with Peter's quiet presence. Her late husband had never been a man of many words, but he had a way of grounding her when life spun out of control. She remembered one evening, years ago, when Daniel was 10. He had come home from school with a drawing crumpled in his backpack. When Maria asked about it, he shrugged and mumbled, "It's nothing." She had smoothed the paper out and seen a sketch of a rocket ship blasting into the stars. "You could be an engineer one day," she had said excitedly. "Or an astronaut. Imagine my son flying to the moon!" But Peter had cleared his throat and said quietly, "Maybe he just likes drawing, Maria." She had brushed the comment aside at the time, too focused on the bigger future she envisioned. Drawing won't pay the bills, she had told herself. She pushed Daniel into math clubs, science fairs, tutoring, anything that looked like a step toward success. Now, sitting in the quiet evening, Maria finally understood Peter's words. He had seen something she hadn't. Daniel's need to be heard, not molded. The memory of Peter's last days returned to her then. He had been sick, his body failing, but his eyes had remained sharp. One night, when Daniel was staying over at a friend's house, Peter had reached for Maria's hand. "Promise me," he had whispered, his voice raspy. "Don't hold him too tight. Let him be who he is." Maria had squeezed his hand, nodding through tears. At the time, she thought she was promising not to be overprotective. She didn't realize that pushing too hard could strangle a dream just as much as shielding too much could. And now, here she was, sitting alone, with the weight of broken promises pressing against her chest. Her phone buzzed beside her. For a fleeting moment, her heart leapt. Maybe it was Daniel, reaching out. But when she picked it up, it was only a notification from the bank, a reminder about an unpaid bill. She set it down, the disappointment cutting deep. The crickets chirped louder as the night settled in, and Maria whispered into the darkness, "Peter, I wish you were here. I don't know how to reach him anymore." The wind carried her words away, leaving her with only silence. But somewhere deep in her heart, Maria felt that Peter's voice lingered still, urging her to look not at what she wanted for Daniel, but at what Daniel wanted for himself. For the first time in years, she wondered if she truly knew what that was. 2 days passed with no word from Daniel. Each morning, Maria woke up hoping to hear the creak of his bedroom door or the sound of his music drifting down the hall. But the house stayed quiet, and the silence gnawed at her. On the 3rd day, Maria decided she couldn't bear the waiting anymore. She needed to step outside, clear her head. She slipped on her coat and walked into town, her feet carrying her aimlessly past the familiar storefronts. She stopped in front of a small cafe she rarely visited. Something about the warm glow of the lights inside, the gentle hum of conversation, drew her in. She ordered a coffee and sat near the window, watching people hurry by on the sidewalk. As she stirred her drink absent-mindedly, she noticed an elderly man at the next table. His hair was silver, his eyes kind, and he wore a well-worn cardigan that seemed to match the gentle lines on his face. He glanced at her and smiled softly, as though he could sense the storm in her heart. "Tough day?" he asked, his voice calm and inviting. Maria hesitated, then sighed. "Tough year, really." She hadn't meant to open up, but the words spilled out. Maybe it was the loneliness, or maybe it was the kindness in his eyes. The man nodded, sipping his tea. "I've seen that look before. A parent's look. Tell me, is it your child?" Maria's chest tightened. "My son. He's 16, and I don't know who he is anymore. He used to laugh, he used to talk to me. Now he just pushes me away." The stranger leaned back thoughtfully. "Children don't stop needing us when they grow. They just need us differently." Maria frowned. "Differently?" He smiled gently. "When they're little, they need us to guide every step, hold their hands, make choices for them. But as they grow, what they need most is to be seen, not as who we hope they'll be, but as who they already are." His words pierced Maria like a blade. She thought of the photo album, of Daniel's rocket ship drawing, of Peter's quiet warnings. "I thought I was helping him," Maria whispered, her eyes filling. "I wanted him to have the opportunities I never had." The man's gaze softened. "We all do. But sometimes the greatest gift we can give is not opportunity, but acceptance. To say, 'I see you. I hear you. You are enough.'" Maria's breath caught in her throat. She had spent so many years building a future for Daniel that she had forgotten to honor the present. The boy, right in front of her. The stranger rose slowly, setting a few coins on the table. As he adjusted his cardigan, he gave her one last knowing look. "Don't wait too long to tell him," he said quietly. "Time has a way of running faster than we think." And just like that, he walked out into the cool evening, leaving Maria staring into her untouched coffee, her heart shaken by the truth of a stranger's words. That night, Maria sat at the kitchen table with a pen and a sheet of paper in front of her. The stranger's words from the cafe echoed in her ears. To say, "I see you. I hear you. You are enough." She hadn't spoken those words to Daniel in years, maybe ever. What she had spoken were reminders, warnings, and expectations. Did you finish your homework? Did you apply for that program? Don't waste your potential. But love, acceptance, and listening, those had slowly slipped into the background. Her hand trembled as she began to write. "Dear Daniel, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but there are things I need to say. I've spent so much time trying to shape your future that I forgot to cherish who you are right now. I see now that I've been pushing you, when maybe what you needed was for me to listen. I thought I was protecting you. But maybe I was only protecting my own fears of you failing. And in doing that, I failed you instead." Tears blurred the ink on the page. She paused, wiping her eyes, and forced herself to keep going. "Do you remember when you were little? How you used to bring me your drawings? I kept every single one, Daniel. Not because they were perfect, but because they were yours. That was enough for me then. And it's still enough now. You are enough, exactly as you are. I just never told you that out loud, and I'm sorry. I should have." Maria's chest ached as she signed the letter. She read it once, twice, her heart both heavy and light. It was the most honest thing she had written in years. She folded the paper carefully and slipped it into an envelope. She wrote his name across the front in shaky handwriting. Daniel. But when she held it in her hands, ready to leave it on his desk or slip it under his bedroom door, her courage faltered. What if he laughed at her words? What if he saw it as weakness? Worse, what if he ignored it altogether? Her fingers tightened around the envelope until it crinkled. At last, she tucked it into the drawer of the kitchen table. Out of sight, but not out of mind. Tomorrow, she whispered to herself. Tomorrow I'll give it to him. But tomorrow didn't come the way she expected. The next afternoon, Maria received a phone call that sent ice down her spine. A teacher from Daniel's school, her voice tense and hurried, told her Daniel hadn't been in class all day. His friends didn't know where he was. No one had seen him since the morning. Maria's blood ran cold. The letter still lay in the drawer, unsent, and her son was gone. Maria's heart pounded as she clutched the phone tighter. Gone? What do you mean gone? She demanded, her voice rising in panic. The teacher spoke carefully, trying to stay calm. He didn't come to his morning classes, Mrs. Alvarez. We thought perhaps he was sick, but when no one could reach him, I knew I had to call you. Maria's hands shook as she hung up. She grabbed her coat, her thoughts spiraling. Where could he be? Did something happen? Or did he leave on purpose? Her eyes darted to the kitchen drawer, the letter, the one she hadn't given him. She pulled it out and held it to her chest, guilt pressing down like a stone. If only I had given this to him yesterday. Maybe he wouldn't have felt so alone. Without another thought, she ran outside. First, she went to his school. She questioned students lingering in the parking lot, but no one had seen him since morning. She checked the library, the park down the street where he used to ride his bike, even the little corner store where he often bought snacks. Nothing. Each place she visited deepened her fear. The world felt suddenly massive, and her son, her little boy, no matter how old he was, seemed terrifyingly small within it. By evening, Maria was at the police station, filling out a missing persons report. The officer behind the desk scribbled notes while trying to reassure her. Teenagers run off sometimes. Usually they come back within a day or two. But Maria's instincts screamed louder than his calm words. Daniel wasn't the kind to disappear without reason. He had been hurting, she knew that much. But what if this time, his pain had pushed him too far? Exhausted, she drove aimlessly through the streets, calling his name out the window like he might appear from the shadows. Each corner, each alley, each stretch of road felt endless. Finally, she pulled into the parking lot of an old community center. Something tugged at her memory. Daniel had mentioned once, months ago, that he liked going there after school sometimes, just to clear his head. She had dismissed it back then, too focused on his grades to ask why. Maria's footsteps echoed as she entered the dim building. A janitor sweeping the floor looked up in surprise. "Excuse me," she said breathlessly. "Have you seen a boy? 16, brown hair, brown eyes, wearing a gray hoodie?" The man thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Yeah. I saw a kid like that earlier. He was sitting in the back room, sketching in a notebook. Looked upset. He left about an hour ago." Maria's pulse raced. Sketching. He was drawing. The janitor added. Said something about not wanting to go home. Her knees weakened, and she gripped the wall for support. Her son was out there, wandering the night, carrying a hurt she had failed to ease. And she didn't know if she had already lost her chance to reach him. Maria barely slept that night. She sat by the window, staring at the empty street, waiting for a glimpse of Daniel's shadow. Every sound outside, a car passing, footsteps on the sidewalk, jolted her heart. But it was never him. By morning, her body ached with exhaustion, but her mind was restless. She couldn't keep wandering the streets blindly. She needed a lead. She thought of his classmates, the few friends he sometimes mentioned. Maria scrolled through Daniel's messages on the family computer, searching for names. One stood out, Ethan. The boy lived only a few blocks away, and she remembered Daniel speaking about him once, in a rare moment of enthusiasm. Without hesitation, Maria marched to Ethan's house. A woman opened the door, her kind eyes widening at Maria's worried expression. "I'm Daniel's mother," Maria blurted. "I'm so sorry to show up unannounced, but I need to know if Ethan has seen him." Moments later, Ethan appeared. He was a tall, quiet boy with messy hair and a nervous glance. Maria noticed the way he hesitated before speaking, like he was hiding something. "Ethan," Maria said softly, trying not to scare him. "Please, if you know where Daniel is, I need you to tell me. He hasn't been home." "I'm so worried." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. His eyes flicked to his mother, then back to Maria. Finally, he sighed. "Mrs. Alvarez, Daniel told me not to say anything. He said you wouldn't understand." Maria's throat tightened. I may have failed before, but I'm begging you, help me find my son." The boy hesitated, then led her to his room. He pulled out a worn sketchbook from under his bed. Maria's heart nearly stopped. It was Daniel's. She flipped it open, trembling. Page after page overflowed with drawings, not the simple doodles of a bored teenager, but powerful emotional art. Faces twisted in sadness, hands reaching for something just out of grasp, shadows swallowing small figures. Some pages were soaked with faint stains, as if Daniel had cried over them. Maria's eyes blurred with tears. She had never seen this side of her son. His art was a window into his soul, a soul she hadn't bothered to look into before. "He comes here sometimes," Ethan admitted quietly. "When he feels invisible." He said drawing makes him feel real. But he also said he doesn't want to go home because he feels like he's just a disappointment. Maria's chest ached so badly she could hardly breathe. She pressed a hand against her mouth, trying to contain the sob rising in her throat. A disappointment. That's what her son thought of himself, and she knew she was the reason why. Ethan added in a whisper. He mentioned maybe leaving. Going somewhere no one would find him. He didn't say where. Maria's hands clutched the sketchbook like a lifeline. She looked at Ethan with tear-filled eyes. "If you hear from him, promise me you'll tell me right away." The boy nodded. "I promise." Maria walked home slowly, her steps heavy, the sketchbook pressed against her chest. Each drawing felt like a silent scream she had ignored for too long, but one image near the back stopped her cold. It was a picture of a bridge, sketched in dark strokes with a lone figure standing at the edge. Her stomach twisted. She knew that place, and suddenly she knew where she had to go. The sketch of the bridge burned in Maria's mind as she drove, her hands gripping the wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. Each second felt like an hour, every red light a cruel obstacle between her and her son. The bridge wasn't far, an old, weathered structure stretching over the quiet river at the edge of town. It was a place Maria had taken Daniel to when he was a boy. She remembered holding his small hand as they fed ducks together, his laughter echoing in the breeze. It had once been a place of innocence. Now it might be something else entirely. When she arrived, the sky was dimming, shades of orange bleeding into purple. Her heart raced as she scanned the long walkway. At first, she saw no one. The emptiness made her chest tighten. Then, at the far end of the bridge, she saw him. Daniel. He stood motionless, his hoodie pulled tight, hands shoved deep into his pockets. The river glistened below, and the silence of the evening made the scene unbearable. He was staring out over the edge, his face unreadable. Maria's breath caught. She wanted to run, to call his name, but fear held her frozen. What if she startled him? What if he slipped? Slowly, she took a step forward, then another. The sound of her shoes against the wooden planks seemed deafening. "Daniel," she said softly, her voice trembling. He turned slightly, just enough for her to see his tired eyes. "Why are you here?" he asked, his tone flat, like all his energy had drained away. Maria swallowed hard. "Because I'm your mother, and because I should have been here long before now." He looked away, back to the water. "You wouldn't understand." The words cut her deeply, the same ones Ethan had told her the night before. She wanted to argue, to defend herself, but something inside her whispered that this wasn't the time for excuses. "You're right," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I didn't understand. I was so caught up in my own fears and expectations that I didn't see you. I didn't hear you, and that's my fault." Daniel's shoulders trembled, though he didn't turn to face her. Maria reached into her bag with shaky fingers and pulled out the crumpled letter. She held it tightly for a moment, then set it gently on the railing between them. This is from your father. I kept it from you because I was afraid, but you deserve to read his words. You deserve the truth." For the first time, Daniel looked directly at her. His eyes were wet, conflicted. "Why now?" he whispered. Maria's lips trembled. "Because I can't lose you."
Not like this.
"Not when I've just realized how much I've been blind to." "Please, Daniel, if you walk away from me, walk away knowing I love you more than anything, and I will spend the rest of my life proving it to you." The air grew heavy between them, filled with unspoken pain. Maria's heart thudded, every beat echoing like a prayer. Daniel reached out, his fingers brushing the edge of the letter. He didn't open it yet, but he didn't throw it away either. It was a fragile, trembling thread of hope, and Maria clung to it with everything she had. Daniel's fingers lingered on the folded letter, his breathing shallow. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the faint scent of rain. For a long moment, neither he nor Maria spoke. Finally, with hesitant hands, Daniel opened the letter. The paper was creased and worn, the ink slightly faded. His eyes scanned the words, and his lips parted as if the voice of his father were reaching across time to him. My dear Daniel, if you are reading this, it means I couldn't be there to watch you grow. But know this, I have always been proud of you, even before you took your first breath. Life is not measured by perfection, but by courage, by kindness, and by the love you give and receive. You are my son, and that alone makes you enough. Never forget that. Daniel's hand shook as he lowered the paper. A single tear slipped down his cheek, then another, until the page blurred before him. Maria stepped closer, her voice trembling. He wanted you to know you are worthy, Daniel. Not because of grades or achievements or anything else. Just because you are you. Daniel's shoulders quivered. Then why? Why did you make me feel like I was never enough? His voice cracked, heavy with years of unspoken pain. Maria's own tears spilled freely. Because I was scared. I thought if I pushed you harder, you wouldn't make the same mistakes I did. I wanted to protect you from the world, but all I did was push you away. He clenched the letter against his chest, torn between anger and longing. Do you know what it's like to feel invisible in your own home? To feel like no matter what you do, it's never good enough? Maria's knees weakened, and she lowered herself onto the wooden planks of the bridge, looking up at her son with tear-soaked eyes. Yes, she whispered. That's exactly how I felt when I was your age. And instead of breaking that cycle, I repeated it. I hurt you, Daniel, and I can never take that back. But if you let me, I will spend the rest of my life making it right. The river below roared softly, as though echoing their pain. Daniel's chest rose and fell rapidly. He glanced back at the edge of the bridge, then at the letter still crumpled in his fist. Slowly, he sank to the ground beside her. His face was streaked with tears, his voice hoarse. I don't know if I can forgive you yet. Maria reached out, her hand hovering in the space between them. You don't have to, not now. Maybe not ever, just don't give up on yourself, Daniel. Don't give up on the life your father believed you were worthy of. For the first time, Daniel didn't pull away. He didn't take her hand, but he didn't walk to the edge either. Instead, he sat silently beside her, clutching the letter like a lifeline. The silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was the fragile beginning of something new, raw, uncertain, but alive. The night air was cool, wrapping the bridge in a hushed stillness. Maria sat beside her son, the old letter trembling in his hands. For the first time in years, silence between them felt less like distance and more like a fragile peace. Daniel finally broke it. I don't know how to believe you, he whispered, staring down at the letter. Words. They don't erase the years. Maria nodded, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. You're right. Words mean nothing if I don't change. I can't erase the past, Daniel, but I can fight for the future. For us. He glanced at her, searching for sincerity in her eyes. He found no excuses, no anger, only raw, aching honesty. Maria continued softly. You don't have to forgive me today. You don't even have to trust me today. Just let me try, one step at a time. We can start small. We can start now. Daniel looked away, his jaw clenched, but his voice cracked as he whispered, What if I fail again? What if I'm not enough? Maria reached out, and this time her hand brushed against his. Then I'll be right here to remind you that failing doesn't make you worthless. It makes you human. And being human is enough. Daniel didn't pull away. Instead, his hand stayed in hers, trembling but present. His grip wasn't strong, but it was real. As they sat together, a light rain began to fall, misting the wooden planks of the bridge. Maria pulled off her scarf and draped it gently over Daniel's shoulders. He didn't resist. In that small gesture, Maria felt something shift. Not a grand reconciliation, but the fragile beginning of trust. "Come home," she whispered. Not because everything is fixed, but because we can face it together. No more silence. No more pretending. Daniel's lips parted, his eyes filled with exhaustion and uncertainty. For a moment, Maria feared he might refuse. But then, with a slow nod, he whispered, "Okay, I'll come home." Relief surged through Maria, and tears blurred her vision. She wanted to embrace him, but she restrained herself, knowing the road ahead required patience. Instead, she squeezed his hand gently, silently thanking God for this second chance. As they walked back across the bridge, side by side, the river beneath them roared with life. Maria felt the weight of her failures pressing heavily on her shoulders, but alongside it, the faint spark of hope. She knew the journey would be long. There would be setbacks, tears, maybe even anger again. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She had seen her son's pain. She had listened. And she was ready to fight, not against him, but with him. When they reached the car, Daniel hesitated before climbing in. He looked at his mother and said quietly, "Can we stop by the art store tomorrow? I want to keep drawing." Maria's heart swelled. She smiled through her tears. "Of course. And this time, I want to see every page." As they drove away from the bridge, the rain began to clear. The road ahead was uncertain, but it stretched before them like a new canvas, waiting for colors, for mistakes, for beauty, for life. Together, they would paint it,